Hi, I'm Katie. This channel is YouTubing with Katie, and this is a place for community in the journey of being a YouTuber. This is a place for inspiration, encouragement, perspective, that kind of thing, and I'm really glad that you're here. This video is a little different from my other videos. I took parts of a conversation with another YouTuber, Monique, at Pet Photog. This conversation is a few years old, but it is still so relevant, and I'm sure that there will be something encouraging and meaningful for you in here. This video was originally recorded for my main channel, Epic Kate Vida. That's where I do vlogs and have podcast conversations. I'd love for you to go check that out if you haven't already. And here we go.
I create a lot for my audience. I always keep my audience in mind, but I really do like to, I add my personality in there, and I add things that I want to go back and watch too. Even if my audience really wants something on like a high-end video camera or something, I'm just not going to create it because I'm not interested. But I would love to, I want to take the approach as this is something I would want to watch. This could be a little bit of a time capsule for me that I can go back and see too. And as a photographer and videographer, of course, I want everything to be super high quality, but I know that everything we do is not going to be A+ work. I am basically an average driver. I am an average student. You know, I have my moments, and then I just kind of, not everything has to be A+.
Yeah.
And I have to keep telling myself that.
We're not being graded for this. It's not like we're even being paid for it.
No. And you know, with YouTube specifically, I think we get so tied up with the idea of monetizing and like, okay, I can't create that piece of content because then it won't be monetized. Like shorts right now, those little vertical videos, the big questions everyone has, like, but it's really short and my watch time and my monetization and blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, but aren't you making Instagram reels and they don't make you any money?
Yeah. And isn't that just the most amazing thing when we really think about it? However many views we get on a video, that many people with all the content there is out there, all the things they could be doing with their life, they chose to spend that time with us.
Right.
Like, that's humbling.
Right. And sometimes when I look at other people's content, I realize they're thinking that too. It's pretty incredible with the billions of people in the world. How did this person find my tiny grain of sand? How important is your message? I think is part of it. Like, I want to be able to help people and affect people and put some stuff out there, and doesn't have to be perfect in that sense either, or else it'll never get done. And I have to say, you know, I'm so business minded. I do think about business a lot, but for me, like on YouTube, it's one branch of my business. So I have all these other things that I do as well. So I think that's part of why I can let go of things a little bit more too. My plan is not to be a YouTuber or have that be like a standalone business. YouTube supports the business I already have.
Right.
So I think that's a big mind shift for me too. I'm in some beginner YouTuber groups and they're so almost desperate and frantic, you know, and they're like, okay, I followed the system. I put out 4 videos. How come I'm not viral? I'm like, oh gosh, calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
people, you're like, oh,
you got a long road ahead of you. I know. You got a long road. Yeah. Buckle up.
I uploaded 4 videos over the past 4 months. I should give up.
Yes. And I title them exactly like this big YouTuber. And so why aren't I big? Yeah. So I think, you know, diversifying and having other interests and doing other things really helps with that burnout too, because I can walk away. I can step away if I want. I can play with my content. I think part of that too is like our levels of learning things sometimes, because we like say I want to learn a new skill and I step into YouTube. I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to do this whole thing. And so we want the how-tos. We want the techie stuff. We want the checklists. We want to learn from the experts. And then there gets to a point where, okay, we're saturated with that in our brain. Like, okay, you have to come to a point where you say, I know this now and I can apply it. And so then I think you start to really appreciate who else they are. Peter McKinnon's really good at that. You know that he likes knives and coffee and, you know, all these things that don't have anything to do with photography, you know, and there are certain people that can really pull that in there. So I think there's like a point where we want to get deeper. And I have this whole thing where I say consume versus create. And so much of YouTube could just be consume, consume, consume. But if my intent is to learn something, to apply it, at some point I need to create. And that can be a hang up point for some people. So they keep themselves stuck in that consume, consume. Like, I want to know all the how-tos, exactly how to title my video with TubeBuddy, but they never apply it because they think they have to be perfect, like this person who's been doing it for 10 years.
Anxiety and fear just speaks to us too much. And it's like the only way to get past it is through it. Like straight through, just like while the voices are telling you, who are you and blah, 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 you just keep creating. But in these winter months, it's a little different. We have to have a little extra special grace with ourselves.
That's a good word. Yeah. I like that. And I think too, like for me, when you say get through it, to me, I almost push through it too much. And so then I get more fog.
Makes things worse.
Yes. And so what I try to do is something my counselor told me years ago. If I'm feeling all that, go outside. Even if it's just my 20-minute walk with my dog or on the porch when it's raining, whatever, go outside. And I've heard other people say that too, like change your environment, even if just for a minute.
Right.
And because that can replenish me.
How are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase toxic positivity.
Yes.
It's like too much of that, just keep pushing, can be really, really dangerous.
Well, in the hustle culture is huge right now. And in the US.
You think you need to sleep? You think you need to build relationships with people?
What? I know. And that's
40-hour weeks and then do your side hustle when you get home until 1 a.m.
I know. I just can't. Like, I'm almost 50. No, that's not happening. I can't. I know that I'm not going to do that.
I'm 34. I can't.
Right. Yeah. and like, again, you only have this many hours in a day. And one of my kids used to tell me, they used to be like, Mom, you can't give from an empty cup. Like a lot of people know that. Right. And so we give and give and give. You give to your kids and your husband and your job and whatever else you're doing, volunteering. And then you have this much left for YouTube,
Like, that expression, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
That expression was a thing about how that is a pointless thing because it's impossible.
Ugh.
Did you know that?
No.
And it's like, it's always about being impossible. It's not like, yes, this is a recipe for life.
Yeah. I grew up extremely poor. And so, my mom had this phrase, I can't finance a Hershey bar, and so that's carried through my life thinking, okay, I'll never be enough. I'll never be able to do anything. And when I bought my first house, like, how did that happen? But Katie, I can tell you, I think that pull yourself up from the bootstraps. I agree. That's total BS too, because people are getting so much help behind the scenes they're not telling you about. I think there's people who they're like, yep, I was ground up all by myself. From the ground up, I built myself. No, you didn't. I bet you didn't. There was something behind you supporting you. And when I try to do it on my own,
bought me that condo and I lived there rent free for 10 years.
Yeah. Or whatever it is, like I have a trust fund account or whatever it is, or, a government subsidy, like farmers in the US, they have subsidies. They never tell you that. They're like, we're out there like plowing the fields, like all the generations, like, okay. So I try to remember that. And especially number one, when I'm trying to do something by myself, that it's hard. Yeah. Like I should ask for help. And number two, the people who look like they did it themselves didn't, either because
they had a whole team.
They had a team, and either you don't know that part of their story or they don't tell it. The overnight successes that really have worked hard for 10 years, those kind of stories, or the overnight successes where it really wasn't. They had a lot of support. So when I'm reconciling that in my own brain, like I haven't gotten as far as I wanted to be, or, am I worth it? I have to think about other people's stories too, and put myself in perspective.
When it comes to creative bumps and discouragement and overwhelms, we need to say what's more important than creating right now is reaching out and talking to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. And I thought of that last week when I was feeling really overwhelmed and I didn't reach out to someone. And I knew I wasn't doing it. Yeah.
Because that voice in our head's like, everyone's busy. You're gonna bother them. And it's not.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a bad time, then somebody should just say, it's not a good time, but let's set a time. Or just set aside the thing they're working on and just make time. Like,
well, and I think there's something to reaching out to the right people.
Yeah, that's true.
So don't reach out to someone who only wants to talk about surface things if that's not what you want to talk about, or that's so Debbie Downer all the time, or
Someone who makes you feel like you're in a better place when you're done talking.
That's so true. I had a best friend in my high school years, and in our 20s, we fell apart. I was like, I feel awful every time we get together or talk. We can't be friends anymore. And we're in such different, I guess, niches. I don't know. We have a very different type of content you and I put out. And so when I first started on YouTube, part of what I knew would be the struggle was that I was at the time the only pet-based photographer, although there's a lot of photography channels. And I had to really be honest with myself, like, why is that? Is that just because pet photographers never think to go to YouTube? And I'm in some Facebook groups and they're like, oh, I didn't think to do that. And so I knew it would be a slow growth. So when I went into YouTube, I kind of knew that, I'm not going to have a viral video on how to, light a dog, probably. That's fine. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to just plod along and put out what I want to. Yeah. And then your audience is just kind of like sharing your life.
Yeah. Like, it's like my audience is kindred spirits.
Yeah.
It's maybe, see if what you think, people who maybe were told that they were too much, who it's like a safe place. Like, you can be yourself. We can think through difficult things and silly things together and just be positive. Like, I've seen so many really terrible comment sections, so much negativity. There's no negativity in my comment sections.
Awesome.
It's just really kind, big-hearted, generous people. It's like, I like to say that I want to collect the best people in the world and make a community of them.
I have to say that's so inspiring to watch your channel, because I'm on the very other end of that spectrum. Like, I'm never enough. I was never too much. I completely shy, like cripplingly shy kid. Always thinking small, wanting to hide in the corner. I hate Halloween and dressing up. I don't want to stand out, so to watch you, like, hey, cool, she's wearing some kind of costume today. Or, yes, please show us. Yes. Oh my gosh. Bugs Bunny, my favorite. I love it. And that is just so inspiring to me because you're unapologetic about it. And one of the things that really caught me, I'm just going to go off on like a fangirl moment for you. One thing that I really appreciated was when you did your looking back at your David Hoffman interview, and there was you in the corner watching your video. You did not apologize for any of your behavior or reactions or emotions in that video. You just watched it. And I can't tell you, that was actually inspiring, because how many people I've watched it, that you look back on what you did before and you kind of cringe, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have acted like that. I shouldn't have posted that. And you didn't, you just watched it. Yep. That's what I did. And it was like so accepting. And that was inspiring.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really cool to hear. I think there's always a pressure that once you present yourself a certain way and you present yourself again that way and again, people are like, oh, that's who you are. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, I'm not always the person. Like, I was in a very low key mood that day. And I would just let it be.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like that. I can go to your audience and your followers and you and see someone who's who's living so big and just, I'm going to do this today. And it's okay.
Thank you again for being here. You can check out Monique's channel. I will put that down in the description. And if you want to be a part of building community, if you want to have someone to bounce ideas off of, have an outside perspective to take a look at your channel, your playlists, your titles, your thumbnails, and see if you can get some perspective that you hadn't thought of before, I would love to set up a time to talk with you. I just want to encourage people in telling their stories. I believe in the power of our stories and in what we have a desire to share and put out there on the internet. And I want to encourage people in that. I want to encourage you in that. So if you haven't already and you're still here, I'd love for you to subscribe and be a part of this community.